Hey there, hi there, ho there. We have two 3-0 leads now in the conference finals, one of which is a clear 3-0 lead, and the Celtics have been largely dominant in that series. You know, they've had some close calls, but when it comes down to it, they have been the better team. They have strengthened in the right moments. They have clearly the best player on the floor in some of these moments. And whether it is Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Derek White at times, they have people who can step up when need be, and the Pacers do too, to some extent, but when they were without Tyrese Halliburton, they were without their best player, and Andrew Nembhard did great in stepping up into that. You know, the supporting cast gets cut down by a guy, even if someone steps up, because normally you can rely on Tyrese Halliburton and Nembhard's production, but Nembhard had to make up for Tyrese's production, and there was no one else to make up for Nembhard's production that he typically brings from the bench or from the starting lineup, and he's great in either role. And I mean, TJ McConnell was also really good in that game, but you know, when you're without your best player, it's hard to win. And they went down 3-0, and they've had a valiant run. They've had a great effort, and it takes a lot to get to this point even as a team, but they just don't have enough. And that 3-0 lead is pretty indicative of what a lot of people thought this would be. Now, on the other hand, we have Dallas and Minnesota, and that is a shocking turn of events, for me at least, and for, I assume, a lot of people, because we mostly thought this was going to be like a long series. And I had Minnesota in like 6 or 7. I didn't release a predictions video, but, you know, that's probably what my prediction would have been, just because I saw Minnesota beat the Nuggets very, like, hey, they came up big in a lot of moments in Game 7. They had really good games before that, but they don't have the defensive personnel for Luka and Kyrie as much as they did for Jamal Murray and Jokic, and the supporting cast of the Mavericks is also better than the supporting cast of the Nuggets was, especially in that Game 7. And we saw that bear itself out in this game. You know, Ant and Cat really struggled for most of it. Ant turned it on in the second half for sure, but he sucked in the first two quarters. In the first quarter, he was 3 of 6 for 9 points. Yeah, that's not bad, right? In the second quarter, though, 1 of 5 from the field, 3 points. And then in the third quarter, 5 of 10. But those last 5 were like 5 makes in a row, basically, from what I remember. So at one point, he was 4 of 14 from the field. He finishes this game, you know, shooting 11 of 24 from the field. So, like, pretty decent efficiency by the end of it. But for a large section of it, he was struggling. He finishes with 26, 9, and 9, but he had a defensive lapse late in the game, specifically on a PJ Washington corner 3, where he was pointing to switch with his defender. Like Kyrie was elevating to the shoulder, so he wanted to stay in the corner as the low man on PJ Washington. So he got, I believe it was Conley, maybe, to switch with him, and it resulted in an open PJ Washington corner 3, and was kind of a big dagger in a lot of ways, because you were worrying about Luka, you were worrying about Kyrie, because in the fourth quarter, those two were both really good. Kyrie shot 5 of 7 for 14 points. Luka shot 3 of 3 for 7 points. And you were largely focused on those two. And then when you get a PJ Washington 3 to fall, it's just kind of like, oh, okay, well, it's not even them beating us anymore. And then it, you know, it snowballed from there. And they ended up winning by 9, 116 to 107. And Cat also had a really poor performance in this one. 14 points, 5 of 18 from the field, 11 rebounds, 0 of 8 from 3, which is big because, you know, a lot of his offense is generated from beyond the arc. And he does score within the arc, but a lot of what makes him dangerous and a lot of the spacing comes from, like, him being a floor spacer. And if he's 0 of 8, eventually you can kind of stop worrying about him as much. Rudy Gobert played 28 minutes in this one, only played 2 minutes in the fourth quarter, getting hunted in switches, and it was pretty evident that, hey, this isn't the matchup for Rudy. I don't understand why people always concede those switches. Sometimes it's just kind of like people force the issue. But a lot of times I think defenses are too happy to concede a switch. I think they're too lenient with how they switch, because I think the Nuggets had this problem as well. They would let Cat get switched onto people, and then he'd post them up. Or they'd let, someone besides Christian Brown or Aaron Gordon or Kentavious Caldwell-Pope end up on Ant, and that's an easy bucket for Ant. That's just a philosophy thing, though. Like, I think, if you're doing switch defense, that's good to a large extent, but also you should probably, not concede as much. But I saw a stat on Twitter. The worst true shooting percentage in conference finals history on minimum 50 shots in the three-point era. Karl Anthony Towns is having the fifth worst right now. First was Tayshaun Prince in 06-07 with 34.4. Second was Zach Randolph from 2012-13 for 34.6. Third was Terry Teagle with the Lakers in 90-91, 34.6. Ben Wallace was 36 flat with 36 in 04-05. And Karl Anthony Towns is fifth with 37.4% true shooting in this conference finals so far. That is the fifth worst of all time. And if he's going to drop off this much going into a conference finals from what he did last round, that's an issue. And I think it makes you kind of question, can we not just find this in Naz Reid and move Cat for something? Can we not just find better production? Can we find someone who fits what we need a little better and just play Naz in the Cat role? Naz has been more consistent. Karl Anthony Towns has high highs. He was great in the Nugget series. He was really putting away narratives about himself in the first two series. But he's also been inconsistent. He had, I believe, a 5 of 18 shooting performance against the Nuggets as well. He had a couple of stinkers against the Nuggets. And he also still has the dumb fouling thing. He fouls a lot, and it's difficult. Your star 4 gets into foul trouble. I don't know what a Cat trade would look like or what you'd even look for in one, but that's just a thought I've been having recently. And when you look at both of these series, they're very different, but they're in the same spot. Minnesota-Dallas has come down to the wire in basically every single one of these games. And Pacers-Celtics has too, to a certain extent, but it just doesn't feel as close because it's the Celtics are going to win this inevitably. They're the better team. They're just the better team. Minnesota-Dallas, it felt like anyone could win that series, but it just hasn't bore out that way quite yet. And now Minnesota's down 3-0, and no team has ever come back from being down 3-0 in history, and I doubt that we see that for the first time now. Is it possible? Sure. But is it likely? No. And, I mean, if you're down 3-0, the mental aspect of the game gets very difficult. You probably start to wonder, hey, what are we doing this for? Am I doing good enough? Do I need to change something? And you change what was working? Because these are 3 close games. A lot of what Minnesota's doing is working. You just are worried about Kyrie and Luka, because those are 2 of the best closers in the league on the same damn team. And this might be the best backcourt we've ever seen. I don't really think so, all-time legacy-wise, but talent-wise, this might be one of, if not the best backcourts we've ever seen. I think, you look at Steph and Clay as another one of them. And probably there are others, obviously, but they're probably going to end up in that conversation if they win a title, Because, I mean, I would expect Boston to win against Dallas. They have defenders to match up with Luka and Kyrie, and they're not going to stop them. But they're about the best you can throw at them, Drew Holiday and Derek White. But, at the end of the day, we're looking at 2-3-0 leads. So if you guys liked this video, subscribe, comment. Yeah. See ya.